I'm very near live. Hello, everyone. If there's anyone here, we're going to let you join in for a few minutes. Me and my girl Valisa, we're just catching up, talking about this read along, which I totally dropped the ball on. So sorry about it, but we're going to try and do better next month, I promise. Um, uh, what are your just general thoughts? How did you feel rereading this?
It's been honestly like so long since I read this book that everything was just brand new. I was like, oh, this is a good time. But
Yes.
it was such a quick read, even though like I waited to the last minute with
Right.
it. It wasn't that hard because it was such like a quick read. It had that old school YA to it. So
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. It had a few questionable things, it did,
Yeah,
but
we're gonna get there. We're gonna
yeah.
get there. That it's really weird actually because I remember so much like kind of based on what they did in the movie, and some of the weird stuff they handled a little better in the movie, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So I don't know. We'll talk about all of that. But yes, I just love the YA vibes here. Like this specific brand or era of YA is specifically on for me. Like, I don't know, these new YA books, I like them and all, but they're not the
Mhm.
same. They're not the same. Something
Mhm.
about just the writing, I don't know. Like, I genuinely had such a fun time with this. I meant to bring I did bring my copy. I read my movie adaptation copy. I was going to ask you, should we set up some type of movie watch in the Discord where we can all watch the 2014 movie adaptation?
Ooh, I think that would be fun because
Uh,
it's been a minute. So that would be so much
yes.
fun.
Look, I will fight for this movie. I will wake up swinging for this movie because the Weinstein Company just had to fuck over one more thing before before they went out, and it had to be the Vampire Academy movie. But genuinely, I think it's a good movie. I just think behind the scenes there was a lot of crap going on with production, but I have a great time with it. I guess we're just gonna get started. I feel like Jane is probably gonna come in at some point during this live show because Jane was very into it, like earlier in the read along when I should have been trying to be into it. Like she'd already read through Vampire Academy. She's like, "Look, I just read Frostbite."
Oh my goodness,
Just like
yes.
get it, Jane. So maybe we'll see her here at some point. I did not do enough promoting this, so we're just gonna do our thing, and if people want to
Mhm.
watch it later, they can watch it later. So, Vampire Academy. This story follows the friendship of two young, like royal people in this vampire world, or one of them is royal, one of them is her guardian, who is a half vampire, half human hybrid, and yeah, I feel like that's a pretty basic explanation for this whole story, what it's about. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't know. How do you want to go about this? Do we just want to chase like a bunch of different rabbits and then hopefully talk about it all, or try and go from like beginning to end? What's your vibes?
Um, I mean, we can, I guess, like talk about the characters or the world and stuff, and then just freestyle
Okay,
it.
yes.
That
Okay,
sounds
so
good.
let's start with our beautiful main character, Rose, the baddest bitch alive, honestly.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so Rose Hathaway, she is a Dhampir guardian, and like I
Mhm.
said, she's half vampire, half human, and she must protect her best friend and princess Vasilisa Dragomir, which Vasilisa is gonna get
I
confused
know,
up
I
in here, but
know.
that's pretty much her character.
Mhm.
Feminist badass, like fully in control of herself, or maybe not fully in control, but her let's see, how can I say this here? She has a very she's in control in the moment. Whether or
Yeah.
not she's in control of the emotions behind those actions, she knows what she's doing. She's gonna come, she's gonna get it done. Who is your favorite character?
It's gonna have to be Rose for
Of
me
course.
because I mean, when I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, like this, she was like a good YA representation because
Hmm.
usually they're usually timid or like, I don't know, like she was
Yeah, Miss
bold.
Bella, we
She
know
was
her.
yes, yes. So I really enjoyed Rose. I was like, okay, we finally have like a 17-year-old that's like out here being a 17-year-old.
Right.
So
Acting
I
crazy as hell, like
yes.
not giving like any consideration to what these consequences are going to be. Well, I mean, we do see some growth of that. She starts thinking about the future a little bit more throughout the book.
hmm
But yeah, so Rose, we love her. Of course, she's my favorite as well. So our other main character here is Princess Vasilisa Dragomir, and she is a Moroi, royal, as I said. So in this world, the Moroi are our good vampires, and they practice elemental magic. So, you know, water, air, fire, all that good stuff. And our girl Lissa has not actually been able to claim her magic. She doesn't know what her magic is. And so throughout this book, we kind of discover a little bit about that. That she can heal people, stuff like that. We love Lissa. In comparison to Rose, it's just like, well, that's Lissa. You know, she's a little bit bland, a little bit vanilla, but she's very interesting as far as like the magical side goes.
hmm hmm
So this power, do we talk about this with character or do we just gloss by her and then we come back to it? We're talking about how the power makes her do certain things to herself.
Um, I don't. It's whatever because I mean it's part of her character. I don't feel like it's some huge spoiler or
Yeah,
anything.
okay. So Vasilisa is going through it, right? Because she, like I said, she does not know what her powers are, and she's able to heal people, but she doesn't know what that means. She's able to like inflict compulsion and influence people's will, but again, she doesn't know what that means. And so sometimes, just trigger warning out there, sometimes Lissa cuts herself as a way of escaping this really confusing type of like magical pain or whatever she's going through. She cuts herself. So I just want to like sit and talk about that for a minute because that was really kind of, I don't know, it took me by surprise, which I have like different triggers around this topic than I used to when I read this like as a younger person.
hmm
But this really took me by surprise. I was like, what is the actual point of this as far as what was Rochelle thinking, sitting behind her little MacBook, being like, oh, and she cuts herself?
hmm
Because I don't understand necessarily what it added to the story. It didn't really make sense for me at all why that was in there.
hmm Yeah, I that kind of caught me off guard in the same way because I was like, okay, like, is it gonna be a part of like her magical abilities or something? Like she has to bleed. But yeah, it didn't serve a purpose and it kind of just felt like she was throwing in things. And I'm trying to like recall during that time of which this book was coming out, I feel like that was like a big topic. You know,
Mhm.
they kind of like brought that forth, like parents beware, kids are cutting themselves and stuff. So I feel like she felt like, oh well, let me
Yeah,
throw that in my book since you know that was a huge topic during that time period.
yeah. I think you're probably right because I want to say this was released around 2007. So that seems like if I think back to that time in school, like it was definitely like a big topic. But to me, there was no real, I don't know, there was no real reason for it for me. Like there wasn't
hmm
any type of lesson to be learned from it. It was just like, hey, pretty girls cut themselves too. And
Yeah.
I felt very weird about it. What was
hmm
interesting to me was that in the movie, and not to, you know, give any spoilers or anything, but it's pretty basic. In the movie, they didn't say that she actually cut herself. In the movie, the wounds manifested when she used the magic, like it just appeared on her arms. And I was like, well,
Mm.
that's a cool way to be like, I don't know. I felt like it was a good way to like address the issue, but without like kind of glorifying it and being like, oh, look. I don't know. Just something about this was really weird. Um, I guess to continue on with characters and issues we have, let's talk about Miss Mia. Miss Mia Rinaldi. Oh yes, I love that eye roll. You're like that bitch. She okay, so Mia, how do I describe Mia? Mia is described in the book as one of those gap kids, and I absolutely love that because it just works. Mia has this vendetta against Lissa and in turn Rose, because Rose is just Lissa's best friend. Because Lissa's brother, before his tragic death, we haven't discussed that, but he's dead. um, oops. Um, but yes, before he died, he actually had a relationship with Mia, and he apparently did not treat her very well. And so now Mia has this very like strong vendetta against Lissa for whatever reason. And so she essentially spreads throughout the school that Rose is a blood whore, which is what we call dompiers in this world, who let Moroi men, or I guess women, if you're a dompier. Look, I don't know, gender, whatever. But yes, that's what we call them if they are letting Moroi royalty feed on them. And so that rumor is spread throughout the school. Like I said, Miss Mia. And honestly, just the whole slut shamey vibe of this, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. Again, it felt like, I don't know, this one didn't feel as bad as like the other issue, as far as like, oh, there's no real reason to this. It at least seemed like, hey, don't slut shame people, but it was still just such basic like YA way of going about this very high school, very teenage drama. And I don't know, I just didn't like it. I felt the whole thing made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, because I still feel like her purpose, like what was that was it. That was her purpose, was just to tarnish Rose's reputation, to make
Mhm,
her respond in the way that she did and be like her turning point. And I
mhm.
just feel like we could have done another way. I mean, like,
Yeah,
the Mean Girl situation, it's been done 1,000 times,
yeah,
but I just keep on having to remind myself, like, this
of
is
the time.
old. It's
Yeah,
from back then.
yeah,
This
I
is the
definitely
thing.
think like if this was written now in the same YA market, like it would just be so, I don't know, it's really interesting. I feel like it would be really watered down. And it's like I do take issue with some of these things, but I also
Mhm.
kind of like that this is just different. Like it's just
Mhm.
entirely different. Maybe everything she did didn't hit the mark necessarily, but as far as any of the YA like vampire type stuff I remember reading around the whole Twilight hype, this
Mhm.
is just the most interesting, like well thought out world building. So I don't know, kudos to her on that. Let's see. I probably should have prepared like actual prompts to be like, talk about this thing, talk about this thing. I didn't. We're freeballing it today,
Right.
okay?
It's okay. It,
Okay, so other characters that are important. So a few male characters you guys should just know. I guess we probably don't need to go too far into them, but Mason is our resident bestie for Rose. He's
yeah.
super crushing on her. Also, I'm pulling for Mason, honestly. Don't get me wrong. I love Dimitri. In the next book, you know, Adrian is spicy too. But I'm like, let Mason have a shot. Like, Rose, come
Mm.
on, babe. Mason is just literally such a cutie. I can't. Him in the 2014 movie, I was gushing the entire time I was in the theater. um, but yeah, we have Mason. We have Jesse Zeklos, who you don't even really need to know, honestly. He's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. He played into the slut shaming. That's all you need to know. Some other of his little buddies, and Miss Carp. Miss Carp is probably the only other real like main character. Oh, and Dimitri. I haven't even discussed Dimitri yet. Let's talk about Dimitri. Dimitri is our love interest for Miss Rose, but he is
Mm.
also her a little bit older mentor, kind of a
Mhm.
teacher figure. So there is some, you know, some little tropes going on there that we're pretty used to seeing in the YA genre. Personally, what did you think about Dimitri on just a general level? And then also, how do you feel this content was handled for like him and Rose?
I like Dimitri. I was like, he's a little mysterious or whatever, especially with, like, the rumors that they had around him and everything. So I really
Mhm.
was enjoying him a lot in the beginning of this book. I felt like once Rose really started crushing on him, I was like a little bit with it, with it, because I feel like their age gap. I don't have a problem with like age gap, but I just feel like her being 17 and then like him 7 years is 24. And as somebody who's been 24, I'm like,
Yeah,
really, a 17-year-old? Like
Yeah.
if you're 17 and reading this, it seems like, oh wow, wow, like oh this is so cool. But like as somebody who's been 24, I'm like, wait a minute,
It's just a
how
little
is this
cringe.
happening?
It's like, yeah, I'm 25 right now, and the thought of like I can't even like say it like dating a 17-year-old. No, absolutely not. Looking at a 17-year-old that way, absolutely not. It just makes me feel like old and gross and like no, thank you. As far as the book though, and like how this is usually handled in these types of tropes and situations, I'm kind of here for it, and I know I shouldn't be. Maybe it's because I have that like strong nostalgia from like childhood, but I'm just like, yes, bitch, get it, get it. I really love Dimitri though. I feel like I don't. Rose is doing the whole like schoolgirl thing, like she's really into him or whatever. But I feel like he
Mhm.
genuinely just doesn't really want to do anything inappropriate. Like he's like,
Mhm.
oh shit, like this should not have happened. The whole thing with the charm or whatever. And so I feel like I like him because he clearly has feelings for her, but he's also not being like, let me ruin your entire life for selfishness.
Mhm.
So I really like that. Just him as a character, though, I think he's also super, super interesting. I'm starting to piece together things that happen for him later in the series, and I'm like, I just can't wait to find out. And so then we have Miss Sonia Karp, who has kind of struggled with some of the same things that Lissa has. And we find out that Miss Karp has kind of gone a little cuckoo and that she had to be put away in an asylum and that she turned herself into a Strigoi to kind of escape the pain that her and Lissa are both going through. Like we said, Lissa was cutting herself to try and distract, and Miss Carp just couldn't handle it, so she turned Strigoi. I feel like Miss Carp's character is honestly probably the most underrated of the book.
Mhm.
Like she really propels the entire. Like none of the story happens without Miss Carp. Like before the story even takes place, everything that goes on prior to their escape from the academy just really sets everything into motion. And I really justice for Sonia. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wish we had more time with her in this book, or like I don't know, an expert of like a little story of just about her because her character was
Yeah.
so interesting.
I cannot wait to watch the movie with you because Claire Foy plays Miss Carp in the movie, and
Ooh.
she perfectly played her. Like she's funny, but she's also like she's so kooky that you're like, oh shit, like what's actually going on with this
Mhm.
lady? Why is she following around these girls around the school and being weird AF? Like, what's going on? She really had the perfect balance. Um, while we're on characters as well, I keep saying we're at the end of the characters. We're not. There's a lot of people apparently. But we do have Prince Dashkov and his daughter Natalie, who is Lissa's cousin. Do they call each other cousins? Is that what they say? I don't really know because they're different families, but we'll roll with it. They're either way, they're good friends or family friends, and I'm pretty sure they call each other cousins. So Prince Dashkov has this disease. It's really rare. It's called Sandowski's disease, and it's essentially kind of eating his body from the inside out. Is how I kind of understand it. Like either way, he's like shutting down, and things aren't good for him. And then we have Natalie, who is just this like bright, bubbly, socially awkward, like weird girl in high school, essentially.
Mhm.
And yeah, they turn out to be not so great. I guess we're just talking spoilers and everything. Um, did
Listen, if they
you
came here, it's all good.
look? We've got two people. Let us know your thoughts, two people. Who's here? Love you. Anyways, so let's talk about the fact that everything going on throughout the book, as far as dead animals and like all this stuff with Lissa trying to like psych her out or whatever, was just her uncle, or Prince Dashkov, what however we want to refer to him. Did you see that coming? Did you remember that from before, or was that kind of shocking?
That was kind of shocking, and it kind of threw me off because it's like at the end, of course he explains like why he was doing that. I was like, but you didn't leave an opportunity for it. Like you slit the fox's throat completely. Like it wasn't like you broke the fox's like leg and it was like there or something. So I was
Right.
like, how is that supposed to have been enticing for her to want to go heal it? So that's what like really threw me off. And I was like, oh, well,
You're just really
what's
pushing
really going
her off
on?
the edge. Like you're making her use magic with no real end result.
Hmm.
And it's like, what is that really doing for you? I do find it like interesting. I don't know. Something about like watching the movie, every person I've watched it with, they're like, oh, the twist is that it's this guy. So I guess it's just set up in a little bit more of an obvious way. But I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was paced pretty well, like the twist coming out and everything. I was like, okay, this actually makes pretty good sense. I really loved just the whole ending thing where he's kidnapped Lissa and then there's an air user like sucking the air literally
Hmm.
from her lungs. I'm like, this is super, super interesting. I think one of my favorite things about Twilight is actually the very end when we're introduced to all the different, vampires across the world and they've got all these different powers and seeing how they work together. I'm like, I
Hmm.
want to see more of that in the future of this. Actually see the Moroi using their powers like they had talked about, fighting alongside the Guardians. And I don't remember where honestly, after book 3, I'm completely blank. I don't remember anything because I've
Oh,
only read
wow.
those books one time. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm pretty sure that's the revolution that we're going towards, if anything about this book gives us an indicator. Um, but yeah, super, super fun. What else happens here?
I think the pacing is really a big highlight for this book. I don't feel like
Yes.
at any point it was dragging, and there wasn't any like really action scenes
Mhm.
either.
Yeah,
So,
it's really interesting how most of it is like just teenage drama, but
hmm.
it's so like enthralling. Like it really does feel like my copy is 332 pages and it feels like to me maybe like a 250-page book at the
Hmm.
max. Like it doesn't feel like a whole novel, but it is. So kudos to her on that. I actually think the pacing of the series has always kind of been like on my mind. Like I remember the last time I read the first 3 a couple of years ago and then dropped off again. But I reread the first 3 and it was just such like mindless, like I don't know, like guilty pleasure reading. Like it didn't
Hmm.
feel like work at all. Like there's never a moment where my brain's like, oh, I'm tired. Let me put this down and go away for a
Hmm.
minute. Like I could just read it cover to cover if I have the time. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really that good. And it's like, it's not like we're sitting here talking about some like classical masterpiece or something. Um, Hold on, we've got a comment. Sorry, I get distracted easily. Pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. First time reading it and was apprehensive. Okay, yes, that's valid. YA vampire books they can be something. The plot and world building were great. I fully agree with you, Marjorie. Thanks for joining us. Um, Hold on, exit out of there. But yes, the pacing obviously great. Really, I do just love the world building here. I love the. I don't know. I've always found it intriguing, just the idea of having like these royal like vampires, but they're not even like they're vampires because they feed on blood, but they're not even like really vampires. They're just like really elite humans essentially with these guardians, and then they have to be protected from these other people who have decided to like eat people and go bad, and then they're just trying to kill them for whatever reason. I just I love it so much. I love it so much. Um, let's see here. I'm trying to remember. I feel like we said, there's not really a whole lot of action here, at least in the first book. It definitely does pick up later on. But there's not a whole lot of action here. So I feel like I don't want to just like sit and dissect a bunch of like teen drama necessarily. But I'm like, what else really happened in this? I feel like everything, it's so like character driven that everything kind of happens behind the drama. Does that
Hmm.
make sense? I have no idea.
Oh,
Um,
we can talk about Christian.
Christian! Oh my God.
Yes.
Baby, I'm so sorry I forgot you. Okay, so Christian Ozera, he is from the Ozera family, who are technically royal, but they are kind of outcast because many of them have decided to turn into Strigoi of their own free will and volition. So Christian is kind of growing up underneath that shadow. Everyone kind of thinks he's a freak, yada, yada, yada. But our homegirl, Lissa, she kind of thinks he's cute. She likes that creepy D. And yeah, so they have their cute little romantic church attic dates with the stained glass behind them. And I honestly love Christian so much. He's just a rare gem of beauty. Uh, how could you not love Christian? I don't know. What do you think about Christian? You love him, right?
Yes, that's why I'm like Christian. But yeah, I liked his character from the very beginning. And I feel like we still have so much more to discover about him and stuff. Like
Yeah.
what he did with the whole fire in the class, and they're like, "Wait, how do you know that? Like, who taught you that if you don't talk to your parents?"
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel like his character, I'm hoping will continue to get more time and bloom more throughout this series because I'm very intrigued by him.
Yes, I'm definitely excited to see how far he goes with it because like he's ready to fight. Like he's over this like
Mhm.
let me just sit in the corner and be like all sad and emo. Like he's like, nah, bitch, let me on the field, let me at him. Like I'm not scared. And I love that. I think he's a perfect balance for Lissa as well. Because she just really she puts too much emphasis into like I don't know, I guess like societal bracketing or whatever you would want to call it. And I
Mhm.
feel like I love seeing her with Christian because like when she's with him, she's literally just herself and she doesn't have to worry about all the other stuff. And she's just like, no, I'm Lissa. That's good enough. And she never feels that way. So I really love that for her. I really love when Rose realizes, like maybe midway throughout the book, like, oh, I messed up. Like this guy is actually really, really good for my friend. And now she's spiraling because I'm selfish.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
And
yes,
I feel like that's one of the highlights, like in that book. I know we talked about like some of the things we're like, I'm not quite sure about that message, but I feel like with her message and that whole thing, like, reading about, because, we sometimes do that, like, I don't know, they the best for you.
mhm,
But like that, that was what the best in having Rose like be woman enough, I guess,
yeah,
to say, you know what, I was wrong. I thought you should get something else, but like
mhm,
actually this is better for you.
yeah. And just the, like you said, there are some things that it's just like side eye, let's not talk about it. But I love the friendship. Like,
Hmm.
I love the female-female friendship, especially at this time. Like now we're getting more stories that actually talk about empowering female friendships and everything. But back then it's really like every female character is kind of hinged on a guy.
Hmm.
And while sure there are romantic interests, I don't think either girls are actually technically dating anyone by the end of the book. Like they just figure out how to get through this mess that they're going through, and Rose figures out how to be a better friend and guardian. And it feels like I don't know, a book like this, like certain things are just gonna be cheesy. They're gonna be like very surface level. But I genuinely feel like the friendship that Rose has and like the love that she has for Lissa, it feels so real and so deep and like complicated. Like when they're fighting with each other, it's like, oh fuck you, but also, you're hurting yourself, like please let me help you. Like
Hmm.
I really love their friendship and how it's represented in the pages.
Hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree, especially like towards the end when she finally was just like, you know what, Dimitri, you're right. I
Mhm.
love Lisa more than I love you. So I'm gonna choose her all the way. Like I'm gonna be her guardian, period.
Right? And the amount of strength, let me just say, I am currently like fully crushing on this boy that I know. Like, right? If I was in the same position, sorry, friend, you're gonna have to give me a few months. I need to get to know this boy, right? So the amount of like willpower that she has, because she like literally, she would jump head over heels for Dimitri in 2 seconds if he said the words. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think for both of them, though, hers is obviously more from like a platonic place of like, I love you, like you're my best friend, and his is more of a place of duty and responsibility. But I feel like what both of them are willing to sacrifice to make sure that the job is done, it's just, it's beautiful. I love it.
Mhm.
It makes my heart sing. Honestly, I'm just kind of shook by this series. Everyone like associates me with Twilight and everything, and it's like there was a lot going on around Twilight, so it's easy to be a Twilight fan. But I feel like Vampire Academy deserved more hype. I feel like it's the best YA vampire series of that time, and I'm sad that no one knows what it is.
But the show's coming out, so hopefully the girlies are about to like find out
Yeah,
like
I'm
what
excited
they've
for
been
the
missing.
show. Have you looked up any of the cast or anything yet?
I have not. I'm
We
going
have
in
a
like completely blind.
very I'm curious to see how they're gonna do it. I'm hoping it's great. Um there are a lot of episodes. I think there's like 10 episodes in the first season. And I'm like, if that's only covering the first book, we're gonna add a bunch of stuff in, which I'm fine with. But I'm curious to see how they'll go about it. Also, the cast is like super, super diverse, which is
Oh.
amazing. I just hope in the actual context of the show, it doesn't feel like, look at us, we're doing such a great thing because we're including different people. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
hate when a show does that, but I know the showrunners and everything, and they did Vampire Diaries. And so I'm really just hoping that it all just comes through and I get to live my fullest life. I've been waiting 8 years for the redemption of this movie. I've literally look, anytime Vampire Academy is brought up, I am ready to fight for the movie. So
Okay, so does the movie cover just the first book
yeah,
or just the first one? Okay.
yeah. Essentially the movie, I mean, honestly, with the challenges that they had, they really did that because in an hour and like 44 minutes, every single plot point in this book is covered and it's covered accurately. I think the only thing is like the movie feels like it's a little bit on fast forward because the
Mhm.
Weinstein Company was like, we want to make this a comedy, cut it down. So they had to cut like 20 to 30 minutes of movie out just completely just to appease, what the Weinsteins wanted to do. They wanted it to be like Mean Girls with fangs, essentially, because
Oh,
it was the
okay.
same director as Mean Girls. And that didn't work. That didn't work. I mean, the posters, they suck at school. That's the tagline we're going to use for this beautiful epic tale of romance. They suck at school.
Wow. Okay.
I'm ready to fight. 8 years later, and I am ready to fight. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, honestly, there's not too much to say about this first book. It really is just like introducing you to the world and the magic system, like we talked about. Which I think I look. If I didn't cover enough, you can message me on Instagram. I'll tell you more. I could talk about this forever. But it's pretty much just setting up the world, letting us know like what's going on, who's who, who's aligned together, who's not, everything like that. We get a good base for Rose and Lissa and what they've been trying to figure out for the past couple of years. And then the book pretty much ends because we just go right into book number 2, which is Frostbite. I'm super excited. I'm kind of glad actually that I waited so late to read this one because I'm so excited to jump into the next one. I'm glad I don't have to wait like over a month. I can just pretty much start it whenever I want. Um, but yeah, I
So
think,
from the reading, so you've read up to book 3. Do you say like her writing style gets like stronger? Because the first book is always a little iffy. So
yeah,
does she get like a little bit stronger?
I would say with this series, what I try to tell people when I try to get them into it is like, okay, ignore the fact that the first book is called Vampire Academy. First of all, it's not a great title. I love it, but it's not a great title. And I'm like, also just ignore the fact that like the first book is a lot of it surrounds like teen girl drama. Like that's just what it is. It's high school. I'm like, if you read the first book and then you get past that one, like each one just seems to get darker and darker. Especially like I remember Shadow Kiss and how that's the third book. I remember how that one ends going into the fourth book, and it's just literally like you're sitting there, your mind is exploded in your brain, you want to cry, you want to bleed. I would say yes. The writing definitely gets
Okay.
better. It definitely gets more intriguing, and we get some different characters. I'm ready
Oh yeah.
for Mr. Adrian Avashkov. I don't know if I'm Team Adrian. I will have to assess. I'm pretty sure I'm Team Dimitri, but we'll see what happens over the next 5 books.
Okay. Because I'm trying to think, like, how long is this series? Because I always just see the, like, the box set. I'm like, oh, that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a lot to
it's
see.
6 books, but then there's actually a spin-off series, that kinda deals more with, like, just the magic side of the world, because I think it's, like, book number 4, we start being introduced into, like, alchemy and stuff in different countries, like, all of that takes place in the same world. And then the spin-off series is 6 books, and it follows the alchemists, and then, like, Rose and Dimitri and all of our main characters pop up every now and again, but it follows someone completely different. I've never read them. I've heard they're actually way better than any of the Vampire Academy books,
Oh,
but I
wow.
don't know if I can believe that until I try it. But yes, I mean, did we cover everything? Honestly, I'm going to be much more prepared, you guys. I moved over this, starting this readathon. Look, things have been insane. I'm going to be more prepared. There will be questions. We'll talk to some of you. We'll do it.
This was a good first one, though. Like, listen, we do that book club every month. This is pretty much how it goes. Nice and
Right.
chill.
It's just like, ugh, I don't know. I get like so, I don't know, kind of on the hamster wheel when I'm talking about certain things that I really like. And then like once we get off of here, I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I didn't make a point about how this and that like this connected to this and like blah blah blah. But it's fine. That's pretty much all we have for you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I saw a couple of you coming in and out. We will talk to you all next. Well, do you want to join the live show next time? You totally don't have to. Also, everyone, round applause for our guest. She totally saved me. My partner is no longer able to do this read along or the book club or anything. So, huge props to her.
Thank you for having me. Introduced me back into this series. It's good to be with someone who's like a real big fan of it because it helps make sense of things to me.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I could just literally gush, but I would sit here and gush about the same things over and over. So, but yeah, so we'll be back at some point. This time I am actually, since I'm back, I've got my office somewhat set up. I'm gonna try and actually host maybe 1 or 2 live sprints for Frostbite over the next month. So stay tuned for that. I probably will not be posting content. You guys know I've been dropped off the face of the earth again, but I'm not going to post content, but I will be live to do live sprints. And then obviously we'll be back in a couple months to talk about Frostbite. So excited to see you guys then. Excited to talk to you about Mr. Adrian and see what you think, see what I think even. But yes, this was lovely. So good to see you, by the way. I feel like I've been completely out of the booktube sphere, and I did a live stream last week over on Elizabeth's channel, and I was like, wow, community, I miss you guys. This is so great. So I'm gonna try and get back in. But yes, thank you, love, so much for bailing me out. It was so great to talk to you about this clusterfuck of a book. And we will talk soon.
Bye, y'all.
Mwah. Bye. And broadcast.